They say I killed my own daughter. She was 5. The police pulled her body out of a pond 3 blocks from our house. There is video footage of me dragging her into the water, holding her under, until she stops breathing. But it wasn't me. I dropped her off at school that morning. And yet, every parent swore they never saw me. The security guard at the gate said the same thing. The cameras show no footage of me dropping her off. My mother-in-law screamed over my daughter's lifeless body.
Ow! What did my grandbaby ever do to you? Why? Why would you do this?
My husband slapped me in front of everyone.
Lily was only 5! Your own flesh and blood! What kind of monster are you?
Overnight, I became infamous. The world decided I was a monster. A child killer. The worst thing a mother could be. My parents were doxxed, harassed online and in the street. Until one day, they were found dead in their own home. Nobody checked on them until the smell of their bodies reached the street. Me, I was convicted, thrown into a cell with inmates who called me child killer. They beat me to death. Even as I lay there dying, there was one thing I couldn't untangle. Why did everyone swear they'd never seen me show up at school? How is there footage of me killing my own child? But that morning, I walked her into preschool. I saw the teacher take her hand. The moment I got home, the teacher called me.
Hi, Claire, just checking in, Lily. Didn't show up this morning. Is she out sick?
I tore the house apart looking for her. When they finally found my daughter, they said it who drowned her. I died hated and innocent. Then, a flash of white light. I opened my eyes. I awoke the morning I took my daughter to school.
Honey, my mother isn't feeling great today.
Mark said gently.
I'm taking her to urgent care. Can you handle drop-off today?
He had his arm around Diane, helping her toward the door. The words hit me like DJ Vuth. This is exactly how it started last time. I stared at him and realized I had been reborn. In my last life, I agreed. I drove Lily to school, and everything went sideways. Now Mark was watching me carefully.
Babe, are you okay? Do you have a lot of work on?
His voice was soft, concerned, almost too careful. In my last life, I was always buried in work. He and his mother handled most of the drop-offs. So why the one time I did it myself, did my daughter end up dead? Was it really just a coincidence? I forced my voice steady. Lily doesn't look great today, I said. What if we just keep her home? No school. Mark glanced toward her, then nodded without hesitation.
Okay, whatever you think is best. Just let her teacher know she won't be in.
His mother smiled from the doorway.
Guess she's all yours today.
They were calm, too calm, and somehow, that made it worse. The more normal they acted, the less I could understand. After they left, I turned and looked at Lily. She was eating cereal, swinging her legs under the chair. Me eyes stung, me throat tightened. All I could see was her body, lifeless in the water. Small, pale, gone. She was so little. How scared must she have been in that moment? How alone? I swallowed it down and sat beside her, keeping my voice soft. Lily, I asked softly, have Daddy and Grandma been nice to you? She flashed me a sweet smile.
They're super nice.
I paused, then asked, what about Miss Harris?
She's nice too. She always helps me with my backpack.
Her face was bright, innocent, happy. Nothing felt wrong. Then she blinked those big clear eyes, confused, innocent.
Mommy, I don't feel sick. Why am I not going to school today?
I lifted a hand and touched her cheek, so careful it hurt. And I told her the truth, straight from my chest, because Mommy can't stand being apart from you. Last time, I dropped her off at preschool, and she ended up dead. I wasn't letting anything happen to her. Not again. Not ever. Lily finished breakfast and curled up on the couch, watching cartoons on the television. I went to the kitchen to rinse dishes. My phone rang.
Hi, Claire, just checking in, Lily. Didn't show up this morning. Is she out sick?
Same line, same cadence, like someone hit replay. I started walking toward the living room, phone pressed tight to my ear. Yeah, sorry, Miss Harris. Lily's not feeling. I stopped. The couch was empty. The television was still on. Her blanket was there. Her stuffed rabbit was there. Lily wasn't. I dropped the call and tore through the house. Bedrooms, closets, bathroom, nothing. Just silence so loud, it made me dizzy. My mind snapped back to the last time, to the way everything had unraveled before. My vision blurred. My legs went weak. I dialed 911 with shaking hands.
911 emergency.
The rest happened exactly the way it had before. The police found her in the same pond, same me muddy bank, same me yellow tape, same me body bag unzipping under gray afternoon light. I ran before anyone could stop me. 10 minutes ago, she was alive, bright-eyed, smiling at me from our couch. No, she was pale still, and impossibly cold. My lungs locked. I held her and kept rubbing her arms like I could warm life back into her.
Lily, baby. Come on, come on.
Nothing, and then it hit me again. I changed everything. I kept her home. I watched her. I did everything differently. Why does every road lead to Lily's death? Why can't I save my own child, no matter what I do? The grief hit so hard, it hollowed me out. I didn't even have the strength to cry anymore. Then Mark and Diane arrived. Dan wailed and grabbed Lily from my arms.
My sweet girl, I was only gone for a moment, and now she is gone.
Mark dropped beside us, sobbing, voice breaking.
Lily, get up, please. Daddy's here. I am sorry. I am so sorry.
Then Mark slapped himself hard across the face, a crazed, broken look on his face. People around us started murmuring, shaken. She was such a good kid. That family adored her. How does this even happen? A detective pushed through the crowd. Detective Ramirez, tablet in hand.
We reviewed nearby cameras.
He said.
Looks like you brought the victim here yourself.
He hit play on screen. I dragged my daughter to the water and held her down until she stopped moving. And every head in that crowd turned toward me. Shock, rage, disgust, like I'd already been sentenced. I stared at the surveillance footage, at the version of me on that screen, and all around me the eyes, dozens of them, hungry, furious, ready to tear me apart. For a split second, it felt like I was back in the life I had already lived. That same helpless, suffocating despair wrapped around my ribs again. Before I could speak, Mark lunged forward. The slap cracked across my face.
She is your daughter. What the hell is wrong with you?
That hit wasn't symbolic. He meant it. His eyes were bloodshot. Feral, like he wanted to tear me apart right there. And I'd seen this before. Last time, he hadn't listened either. One slap, and he decided I was guilty. That was all it took to erase me. Diane clutched Lily and screamed.
What did she ever do to you? She was 5!
She grew more frantic with every word, pressing a hand to her chest like she might collapse. The crowd fed off it. Animal. She was fake, crying this whole time. Lock her up. Simone spat at me. Simone threw a soda cup. 3 phones were inches from my face. Live streaming, comments flooded and faster than I could read. Execute her. No trial. She deserves worse. Detective Ramirez raised his voice over the noise.
This case has escalated fast, and it is extremely strenuous. The evidence is solid. So tell me, what do you have to say for yourself?
I answered without hesitation.
I did not kill my daughter. I could never do such a thing. Please investigate this properly. If you don't, the real killer walks. I am not afraid of dying, but I am scared her real killer will never be found.
Ramirez's jaw set. His eyes went flat. I recognized that look.
We checked the footage chain. No tampering if it isn't you.
Right. If it wasn't me, who killed my daughter and framed me. This question haunted me across 2 lives. Why had I died? Why am I here again? I do not have an answer. The crowd interpreted my confusion as guilt. Oh, now she's quiet. Can't talk your way out of this one. You murdered your own child, and you're still pretending to be innocent. Her husband and the grandmother are the real victims. The live stream comments echoed the same hatred. Detective Ramirez signaled to the officers. Take her away. Cold steel snapped around my wrists. They walked me toward the squad car, same choreography as last time. In my first life, this was the exact moment. Everything closed in. The cell, the beatings, the slow death everyone agreed I deserved. My parents paid too. Their address was posted online. They couldn't step outside without being spit on, cursed at, filmed. People dumped funeral wreaths at their door like they were already dead. Eventually they were. Nobody visited until they could smell their corpses from the road. Was it happening again? Was I walking straight into the same fate? Would the truth ever be revealed about my daughter's death? My mind spiraled. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. But what? Last time, I remembered dropping her off at school. Everyone insisted I hadn't been there. This time, she vanished from our living room and still ended up dead in that same pond. I never went near that water. So why does the footage show me committing the crime? None of it made sense. None of it lined up. Who killed my daughter? Who built the version of me that did? The questions stacked up until I could barely breathe. There had to be something, some detail I missed. I forced myself to replay both timelines moment by moment, searching for a crack in the story. They were pushing me into the patrol car when it hit me. A flash. I twisted around and screamed.
I know who did this!
I know who did this. The words tore out of me. Everything stopped. Detective Ramirez turned slowly, studying me. He looked at me like I just stepped off a ledge. Who? He asked firmly. I looked straight at him. My parents. The silence that followed wasn't shock. It was disbelief. Then the crowd's noise returned. Louder people muttering, phones lifted higher. Someone actually laughed. That is one hell of an accusation, Ramirez said. You have evidence? I do, I said. Bring them here. He didn't move. I said it again. If you want the truth, bring them here. For a second, I thought he was going to dismiss me. Then he made the call. While we waited, the crowd doubled in size. People kept live streaming. The view count continued to grow. My daughter's body was still right there. Strangers debated my sanity, whispering and gossiping about my dead child. Then Miss Harris showed up. Of course she did. She slipped into the crowd with that same careful face she wears during parent-teacher conferences, concerned, controlled, perfect. When the patrol car finally brought my parents, they took one look at Lily's body and fell apart. My mom's hand flew to her chest. She let out a broken sound and started sobbing, shoulders shaking. After a moment, she looked at me, eyes red, voice broken. Claire, what happened? What is this? My dad wiped at his face with trembling hands. She was perfectly fine. How does something like this happen? Seeing them broke me. My eyes burned. I didn't stop the tears this time. Mom, Dad, I won't let Lily die for nothing, but you have to take care of yourselves. Promise me. Because last time, I wasn't the only one who suffered. Last time, I was labeled a monster. In prison, they beat me to death. My parents were the only ones who said I was innocent, so the internet branded them accomplices. Then the internet destroyed them. Their address was leaked. Funeral wreaths were laid on their lawn. People camped outside, filmed them, spit on them. They died in that house, and nobody noticed until the neighbors complained about the smell. So yes, I had them brought here on purpose. This time, I needed them where I could see them, where the mob couldn't reach them first. Detective Ramirez's patience snapped. You had us bring your parents here just so you could give them a pep talk. His eyes cut sharp. You played me. I didn't have a choice, I replied quietly. This thing has gone nuclear. This is the only way to protect them. His jaw worked. Then, quieter. So the murder accusation, that was a lie too? Number, I know who did this, but I need to confirm one thing. I pulled out my phone. There is a location burned into my memory from the life I already lived. A place I didn't understand until it was too late. I opened maps, dropped the pin, turned the screen toward him. Send someone here, I said. Take photos, video, everything. His expression hardened. You are pushing it. You want the truth, I said. Do it. He held my gaze for a long beat. Then he turned and signaled an officer. Go. When the files came in, I felt the last piece fall into place. I knew it. Ramirez was practically vibrating. We did what you asked. Now, tell me, who is it? The crowd started stirring again. She is stalling. She thinks she is smart. The footage shows her killing the kid. She knows she is cooked. Ramirez stepped closer. Claire, who? I didn't answer him. I walked straight toward Miss Harris. She looked confused. Or she pretended to. I stopped in front of her, up close. I could see the faint smudge of foundation near her jawline, like she'd rushed here. Miss Harris, I said quietly. Shouldn't you be in class right now? Miss Harris, I said quietly. Shouldn't you be in class right now? What brings you all the way out here?
Lily was always such a sweet child. I cared about her a lot. I saw the live stream. And I couldn't just sit at school.
She gave me that concerned teacher look.
Claire, is there a problem?
The blank confusion on her face, it was the same expression she wore last time. The day she swore she had never seen me. I didn't answer. I held up the photos the officers had taken.
This is a vacant lot near your school. New development. Ring any bells?
Her eyes shifted, just for a fraction of a second, tight. Then the mask snapped back into place.
I don't really go anywhere except school and home. I'm not familiar with it. Why do you ask?
I leaned in.
Doesn't it look a little bit like your preschool? Because here's what I think. Even if I'd taken Lily to school today, she still would have disappeared. Wouldn't she?
That landed. She wasn't ready for it. She hesitated, long enough for me to see it.
Claire? What are you talking about? Why would a child vanish from a school in broad daylight? We have cameras everywhere. If something happened, we'd have footage.
Miss Harris said. Her answer was polished, reasonable, and full of holes because last time, she'd been the one waiting at that vacant lot, the one that looked just enough like the real school. I'd rarely done drop-off, so I didn't know the difference. The building looked right. The teacher was standing at the door. There were other parents, other security guards, all of them paid actors. A stage set built for one performance, with me as the unwitting audience. I'd walked my daughter straight into a trap. When police checked the real school's cameras afterward, of course we weren't there, because we'd never gone to the real school. Remembering it, the desperate searching, the helpless confusion, every door slamming in my face. I felt the old fury rise in my throat like acid. I let out a long, slow breath.
Honestly, I used to think it was impossible too. But you people are more resourceful than I ever gave you credit for. Last time, you pulled it off perfectly. I thought keeping Lily home would be enough. I was wrong. You still found a way to make her disappear. And I've been trying to figure out how, and now I finally understand.
The crowd shifted. Whispers exploded on all sides.
Wait, is she saying the teacher had something to do with this?
That's a reach. The surveillance clearly shows HCR doing it.
She's just trying to pin it on anyone else. Classic.
Sensing the crowd's support, Miss Harris straightened up, her voice hardening with righteous indignation.
Claire, I understand you're grieving, losing a child I can't imagine, but that does not give you the right to slander me. What happened to Lily has nothing to do with me. I was at school the entire time it happened. Every teacher and student there can vouch for me.
I nodded slowly. You were right.
School this time. Because I didn't send Lily in today, which threw off the plan. So this time, it wasn't you who helped her disappear.
I turned to look at Lily's body. The pain hit fresh and savage. I wiped my eyes and kept going, my voice breaking. There is something I couldn't figure out, I said. This morning, Lily was home with me. I was in the kitchen for maybe 5 minutes. When I came back, she was gone. No broken windows, no forced entry, no noise. I turned and looked directly at Mark and Diane.
So tell me who could walk into my house without a struggle? You too?
Diane and Mark both flinched. A flash of shock crossed their faces before Mark erupted.
Have you completely lost your mind? I took my mom to urgent care. You know that? You think I'd sneak back home and kill my own daughter?
She adored us! You murdered her and now you're trying to blame us? How can you be so cruel?
I didn't raise my voice.
Exactly. She adored you. She never took candy from strangers. She would never open the door for someone she didn't recognize. She would never leave with someone she didn't trust.
I looked straight
You know
at
what I
them.
asked her this morning? I asked if you'd been nice to her.
She looked up at me with that big smile and said, with her whole heart, that you were wonderful to her. She trusted you. Absolutely. If you'd taken her hand and let her out that door, she would have gone without a word, without a cry. My voice cracked. I was barely holding it together now. She would never have imagined not, in a million years, that the two people she loved most in this world were leading her to her death. Mark and Diane exchanged a look, and in that look, I saw shock. Mark's composure exploded.
Claire, cut the bullshit. My mom and I raised that girl. We loved her. Why would we ever? And let's not forget the footage of why you killing her. Not me, not my mom, you. How do you explain that?
His eyes were volcanic. He looked like a man one provocation away from doing something he couldn't take back. I looked at him. My husband, the man I'd built a life with, and I felt nothing but exhaustion. You were right. The footage is real. Mark's jaw clenched.
Then what the hell are you talking about?
I took a breath, and then I began. Let me tell you a story. When my mother went into labor with me, something went wrong. She hemorrhaged badly. They issued one critical condition notice after another. My father knelt outside the delivery room and prayed until his knees bled.
She used every ounce of strength she had to bring me into this world. But there was still another baby inside her. My twin sister.
The bleeding wouldn't stop. Mom was fading. The doctor turned to my father and said, "We can save the mother, or we can try to save the baby. We may not be able to do both." My dad didn't hesitate. Save my wife. But my mother, she grabbed the doctor's wrist and begged him, with everything she had left, to save the baby.
In the end, by some miracle, they both survived. But my sister, the extra time in the womb damaged her. She was born with chronic health problems, a weak immune system, a body that couldn't take the cold.
So from the very beginning, my parents gave her more attention, more protection. The crowd erupted. Oh, here we go. She is inventing a twin sister to take the fall. The lengths this woman will go to do she think we're idiots. But then a voice cut through.
I used to live next door to their family. She does have a twin sister. But last I heard, the sister killed herself after bombing her SATs. Jumped off a bridge.
My mother looked at me through tears, bewildered.
Claire, Natalie's been dead for years. Why are you bringing her up now?
I looked at my mother, and I felt the truth settle like concrete in my bones. I thought she was dead too, until today.
The woman in that footage looks exactly like me. Even I thought it was me when I first watched it. But I've now watched it 3 times and I noticed something. A small thing. A habit. The woman in the video keeps rubbing her ear. Absent-mindedly. I have a scar on my left ear from a childhood injury. I never touch my ears. Never. But Natalie, she always rubbed her earlobe when she was nervous. Always. If the video hasn't been faked and the police say it hasn't, then the one in it isn't me. It's my sister. And if my sister is in that video, then she's alive.
I turned and walked into the crowd. toward a woman standing near the back, wearing a baseball cap pulled low and a surgical mask covering her face. She'd been watching. I stopped in front of her. My voice was raw. "Am I right, Natalie?" Then, slowly, she peeled off the mask, revealing a face that was a mirror of my own. Natalie stared at me. Then she began to clap. Slow, deliberate applause.
Bravo, big sister. Still sharp as ever. Wouldn't expect anything less from our class valedictorian.
My mother's eyes went impossibly wide. My father's hands trembled. The daughter they'd mourned for years was standing right there, breathing, alive, and she'd just been unmasked as the woman who murdered their granddaughter. How do you process that? Your dead child resurrected, only to be revealed as a killer of a 5-year-old of her own niece. I looked at my sister, my twin.
I suspected it was you, almost from the start, but I didn't want to believe it. We grew up together, Natalie.
We were so close. I even suspected my husband and my mother-in-law before I let myself think it could be you.
So just tell me, what did I do to you? Why did you kill my daughter? I don't get it.
We grew up side by side. Same schools, same friends, same late nights at the kitchen table with textbooks spread everywhere. We pushed each other. We challenged each other. When senior year came, we were rivals. But we were proud of each other too. We used to be that close. So how did we get here? Why would she do this to me? Natalie smiles, but her eyes turn to ice.
Blame her for being your daughter. She got what she deserved.
I felt the words like a knife between my ribs. What is that supposed to mean? She didn't answer directly. Instead, she asked.
Do you know why I bombed the SAT?
I shook my head. She let out a cold, bitter laugh.
Don't play dumb with me. Remember the night before the test, you brought me that Commonwealth tea? So thoughtful, so sisterly. And the next morning, I spent the entire bathroom with my guts turning inside out. You drugged me, Claire, because you were terrified I'd outscore you. That I'd take valedictorian. That I'd take your precious scholarship. Do you have any idea how hard I worked for that test? I studied until I collapsed. I gave it everything, every waking hour, a molecule of effort in my broken body. That exam was my entire future. And you stole it from me. I could have gone to Harvard. I could have had the life I deserved, but you made sure I did it.
I hated you. I hated everything. So I went to that bridge, and I jumped.
But apparently God wasn't done with me yet, because I survived, and I spent every day since then thinking, why should I be the one who pays for what you...
Why do you get to ride your valedictorian throne to the top while I rot in the dark? Eventually, it clicked. God didn't let me die because the wrong person was being punished.
It should have been you, Claire. You destroyed my life. So I decided to destroy yours.
She stood there, my mirror image eyes, burning with a satisfaction that made my stomach turn. I remembered the tea. I remembered bringing it to her, but I hadn't put anything in it before I could respond. My mother's voice shattered the air. Natalie, stop. It wasn't Claire. I am the one who put something in that tea. Natalie's face went blank. True shock, but it only lasted a second. Then the sneer returned.
Nice try, Mom. I know you love Claire more than me, but you don't have to take the bullet for her. All that does is make me hate her more.
My mother shook her head violently, tears streaming.
No, listen to me. Everything I'm telling you is the truth.
You've been sick your whole life, Natalie. The doctors were clear your body couldn't handle the cold.
Harvard is in Boston. The winters there are brutal. If you'd gone, your condition would have worsened. You could have died. I couldn't bear it. So I found another way. One test so you'd give up on Harvard, give up on the cold.
I only wanted you to stay somewhere safe. Somewhere warm. I only wanted you alive, Natalie. My father stepped forward, his eyes red and swollen. Your mother is telling the truth. She did it for you.
When she found out you'd taken your own life over that exam, she was close to ending her own. She went to that bridge 3-4 times. Ready to jump, she wanted to die for what she'd done to you.
Natalie stared at our mother. For the first time since she'd taken off that mask, her certainty crumbled. The walls came down, and behind them was nothing but devastation.
Why did you have the right to decide my future? Why did you have to ruin everything?
She was screaming now. My mother reached for her, face crumbling. Natalie, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to keep you safe. I was trying to do what was best. The crowd was murmuring. The live stream comments were pouring in faster than anyone could read. Jesus. The mom sabotaged her own daughter's exam because she was worried about her health, and it spiraled into all of this. This is insane. Why didn't anyone just talk to each other? That poor mother and daughter, both of them made terrible choices, and an innocent little girl paid the price. Bottom line, The sister killed a 5-year-old over a standardized test. A child who had nothing to do with any of it. That is unforgivable. Natalie heard them. Every word. I watched her face change, the rage dissolving into something more raw and terrible. She smiled. The kind of smile that comes right before you break. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Then she turned from our mother, looked at me, looked at Lily's body, small and pale and still on the grass. She dropped to her knees in front of me, hard enough to bruise. Claire, I am sorry.
I was wrong about you, about everything. I spent years believing you sabotaged me. I built my whole revenge on a lie. All that rage, all that hatred, I poured every drop of it onto you. I'm sorry. I killed your daughter.
She slapped herself viciously. I looked down at her, this mirror image of me, kneeling in the dirt, face swelling where she'd struck herself.
You're my sister. If you hated me, cursed me, hit me, screamed at me, and if you wanted me dead, I could live with it. But you went after my daughter. She was 5 years old, Natalie, 5. She had nothing to do with any of this. She was innocent. And your apology, I will never, not in this lifetime or any other, accept it.
Natalie was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. She was sentenced to death. My mother collapsed when the verdict came down. The shock broke something inside her that no doctor could repair. She fell into a coma she never woke from. Miss Harris was fired and placed under criminal investigation. And me, I was shattered. My daughter was dead. My sister was on death row. My mother was a vegetable connected to machines in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and grief. The weight of it pressed me into the ground like a boot on an insect. But Mark and Diane stayed through the darkest months. When I could barely get out of bed, they were there, steady and warm. I slowly began to recover, my body first, then something like a spirit. 3 years later, I found out I was pregnant. On the day I gave birth, snow began to fall, unexpected. I held my newborn daughter and looked out the window at the snowflakes drifting past. Mark was beside me. Our eyes met, and we smiled, because Lily had once told me that snow was her favorite thing in the whole world. My sweet girl, you came back to me.